really briefly, Disability Rights New York is the protection and advocacy agency for New York State. Every state that receives Medicaid funding is obligated by the federal government to have a protection and advocacy system. And our agency is the designated system in New York. So we are not a government agency. We are a private nonprofit agency funded by the government. We work on all different types of legal issues related to people with disabilities. Relative to our conversation tonight, we do a lot of special education work, including early intervention. And we have been looking at this issue, as Bridget knows, for several years. And we are aware of the problems in New York State, in Monroe County, in New York City. So Bridget, why don't we get started with the first slide? I'm not sure exactly of the audience tonight. So I'm going to do a really brief overview of the early intervention program and then get right to the rights of families and children in the early intervention program. So as I'm sure you know, early intervention is a free program. It provides evaluations and services for children who are under the age of 3 with disabilities or developmental delays. And the purpose is to identify and treat the conditions that may impede the growth and development of children. Children have to be under the age of 3 and must have a disability or a delay or an indicia of that maybe a doctor or someone else sees or a parent sees and becomes concerned about. Children have the right to receive critical free early intervention services from New York State, and that is a right. Next slide. The reason why early intervention is so incredibly important, as we all know, that the first 3 years for an infant or a toddler are critical for their development of their language skills, their vision, and their emotions. So children who are under the age of 3 who have access to these services are going to be better off than children who need these services and do not have that access. Early intervention is critical, and because it can make a difference in a child's life, in their cognitive development, their adaptive skills, and their physical and motor skills. Okay. Parents should be concerned and should be thinking about early intervention if a doctor or a child care provider or program director has identified your child as having a disability. If you yourself as a parent have noticed that your child has any delays in communicating, in understanding, in feeding, or really anything, if something seems odd or off to you, under any of those circumstances, the child can be referred to early intervention for an evaluation. Okay. This slide, and Bridget, we also didn't talk about this, but please feel free to share my PowerPoint with anyone who's registered. I'm hoping that you have the ability to do that. And if not, then anyone can contact me and I'm happy to share it after the program. So this just has the contact information for early intervention. Okay. After the call to early intervention, once your child has been referred, the local early intervention official then gets into contact with you. The office will assign you to what's called an initial service coordinator, or ISC. That ISC is responsible for helping you prepare and to get you and your child through the evaluation process. They are obligated to explain what early intervention is, explain your rights under the early intervention program, and review the process with you. Okay. The initial service coordinator, again, is the person who works you through the process, and they will facilitate the process with you. They may attend the evaluation with you. They may, or with your child, you and your child, and they can assist in setting up those evaluations and provide lists of evaluators to you. after the full evaluation process, then if the family is determined to be eligible for early intervention, the ISC will meet with the family to discuss those findings. Okay. The evaluation itself is what is used to determine eligibility for early intervention. If your child is eligible, the ISC and the evaluation itself will help identify what services are needed. Parents must give consent in order for that evaluation to begin. And the evaluation can take place either at your home or at a center. And at the end of the evaluation, a summary and report is provided. The evaluation itself is the process through which the professionals will conduct assessments. They will assess your child's needs in their cognitive, adaptive, emotional, physical, motor, and communication skills. There's a health assessment that can be provided by the primary physician. Parents and family members can be interviewed, will be interviewed. The evaluator will have a discussion with you as a parent regarding your own concerns and observations of your child. The evaluation should include a review of the child's health records and interview with a family interview with the professionals to discuss what resources you have available to your family and what concerns and priorities the family brings to the early intervention process. There's also supposed to be a transportation assessment to review the need for the family in order to get to early intervention services. Okay. The rights of the family as part of the evaluation process. You have the right to choose who conducts the evaluation of your family, of your child. The ISC can help you choose the evaluators, and you want it to be someone who's familiar with your child, if possible, and your child's delays and disability. The evaluation must be conducted in your native language. The evaluation should be conducted at a time and a place that's convenient for you. And you have the right to request a second evaluation if there are concerns, if you have concerns with the way the initial evaluation was conducted. Okay. What happens after the evaluation? So a summary or report will include the statement of eligibility for early intervention services, the name of the professional who evaluated the child, a description of the evaluation that took place, and descriptions of the testing and the scores that the child received, as well as child and parent responses and opinions. So all the information that you provided in the interview. The summary or report will help determine what your child's needs are, and then it leads to the development of the IFSP. Okay. So the IFSP is the Individualized Family Service Plan. There will be a meeting, and within 45 days of the referral of the child to early intervention, the IFSP is supposed to be formulated. So what happens is there's a team meeting where parents have to be present. The early intervention official must be present. The evaluator or a member of the evaluation team is present, and that initial service coordinator. This is the family's chance to speak out and speak up about what they want to see happen as part of this process. The family has the right to invite others, anyone you want, to this meeting. It can be other family members, it can be a pediatrician, it can be an advocate, it can be all of those things. The family has the right to determine who is in addition to be present at that meeting. The specific services are identified at this meeting and discussed. The IFSP is then drafted. It's a written contract, and it needs to be agreed upon by the members of the team who are present. The ISC at that point will then transition out of the process, and an ongoing service coordinator will be identified for the transition from IFSP drafting to IFSP implementation. Okay. So the IFSP is a written plan. It describes the goals for the child and the services that the family will receive. As I said, the IFSP must be developed within 45 days of the receipt of the child's referral to early intervention. And the early intervention official, along with the parents and the member of the evaluation team in the ISC, create this document. The EI official and the parents must approve the IFSP. Okay. So this is really just the IFSP plan includes a description of the child's level of functioning, the goals and the resources and the concerns of the family, the services that will be provided, and the IFSP must include the frequency that those services are to be provided and a start date and the length of time that those services will be provided for, as well as any transportation that's going to be provided for the family if needed to get to the services. So it also obviously will provide for the location for the services for them either to be provided at home or at an outside location. And the IFSP will also identify the ongoing service coordinator and any other services and major outcomes that are expected to be part of the services. Okay. The IFSP again it determines what services are necessary, and those services can include therapy, healthcare, assistive technology, transportation, and family support for the family. And the plan must be reviewed every 6 months. The ongoing service coordinator is responsible for setting this 6-month review up, and the entire team must meet annually. Okay. So the ongoing service coordinator is an individual that works with that family once the child begins to receive the services. I'm curious to hear what people's experience is with when the ongoing service coordinator actually has been getting involved and how long the initial service coordinator remains involved as a practical matter. The ongoing service coordinator is responsible for making sure that that child receives the services that are described in the IFSP and is supposed to be the point of contact for families. They will assist you in identifying service providers and are supposed to coordinate those services and ensure that they actually happen. And they also set up the reviews and the annual reevaluations, as well as the transition to preschool special education. Okay. This is the biggie, implementing the IFSP. Once the IFSP is approved by you, the family member, and the early intervention official, you need to sign it if you agree to it. You can take the time to review the document, and once it is signed, the services must begin as soon as possible. The ongoing service provider, of course, has been identified. This person is your new contact and is responsible from here on out. Okay. When are the services supposed to start? New York State regulations state that the services must begin as soon as possible after the IFSP is approved. In 2016, there was a proposed amendment to the New York State regulations that added a 30-day limit to the implementation of the IFSP. Interestingly, that does not exist in the current regulations, and it does not exist in the New York State public health law. What they say is that the services, must begin as soon as possible. And in the early intervention guides from New York State, they say that they should start within 30 days of approval of the IFSP. Okay. Again, the IFSP must be reviewed every 6 months. The ongoing service coordinator is responsible for this, and the entire team must meet in person annually. And the purpose for the annual meeting, as well as the 6-month review, is to learn if there are additional therapies that the family is requesting, and also if there are additional evaluations that change add, modify, or delete the recommended services. And at these meetings, the outcomes and strategies are supposed to be discussed, as well as what type of progress is being made in the services. The parents can always request a review sooner than 6 months. And if the parents want an increase in services, the early intervention officer may ask for an independent evaluation to determine if that's necessary. Okay. So the rights of the family in the IFSP, you can accept or refuse an evaluation, screening, or an assessment. The family may accept or refuse any of the early intervention services at any time. You can accept or refuse some early intervention services, and that does not affect the right to receive the other services that you do approve of. You have the right to have your family information kept private, to review and make corrections to your child's records, to be notified of all changes, any changes to your child's evaluation or the services. Family members have the right to participate in and invite others to all the meetings regarding your child's evaluation or services. And this is big, you have the right to request mediation, a hearing, or make a complaint to resolve problems with regard to the implementation of the IFSP, the contents of the IFSP, and the receipt of services. You also are entitled to an explanation of insurance and Medicaid and how to use any of it to help pay for early intervention services. Okay. So, additional rights. You can address disagreements regarding the services for your child. And if you ask for any of these things and your child is actually receiving services, those services will continue throughout this process. It does not stop the services. You can ask for mediation. That is where a neutral third party will hear both sides, and the parents and the early intervention official have the opportunity to share concerns. It's a facilitated discussion to try to resolve the disagreement, and that's free. You have the right to request an impartial due process hearing. This is a very formal process where a hearing officer listens to both sides. You have the right to present evidence and witness testimony, and the hearing officer makes a decision on the issues, and that can include the failure to provide services, and that is also free. And finally, there's also the opportunity to make what's called a systems complaint. It can also be called maybe a due process complaint, and it's a written complaint requesting that the Department of Health investigate a service provider or the early intervention program. And more on these to come. Okay. So here are some links to additional information about this dispute resolution process with the different processes. The first link here is the IDEA Early Intervention Written State Complaint Guide. So it is basically a toolkit, lots of information in there, and I would encourage all parents to click on that link and check it out. And if you think you would like to write a state complaint. And the second link is, it contains a lot of really great information on mediation. Okay. So mediation is voluntary, and it's a confidential way to work out disagreements and complaints about early intervention services. I'm not certain that this is really an appropriate intervention in the failure to receive services. But if there's a disagreement about the IFSP or an issue that you have with a provider, mediation is used to help you and the early intervention official reach an agreement as easily and as quickly as possible. And the mediators are certainly trained and certified, and they're assigned by the Community Dispute Resolution Center in the county where you reside. And they're skilled in listening to all sides of the dispute. They meet with you, they talk out all of the issues and try to find common ground and help find answers to your questions. Both sides have the chance to share concerns about the services, and then The entire mediation process must be finished within 30 days. After it's finished, a written agreement is prepared, if there is an agreement at the end of the mediation, describing what was agreed to. And maybe there could be a partial agreement of some of the issues or a complete agreement of all of the issues. You will get a written agreement, and the service coordinator will then make sure that the agreement is added to the IFSP. If your disagreement can't be settled through mediation, the early intervention officer should discuss with you your additional rights, which include an impartial hearing. Okay. The impartial hearing, as I said, is a much more formal option to resolve early intervention disputes. It can be about eligibility, about services, and definitely about the failure to provide services. It's an administrative proceeding where there's an impartial hearing officer who will listen to testimony from witnesses and will review evidence. The IHO, impartial hearing officer, must render a written decision within 30 days. They can order the early intervention official to change a determination about eligibility, services, and compensatory services. The IHO can't award money damages, and either party can then appeal the IHO's decision. Due process hearings are free. If parents choose to have an attorney, they must pay for their own attorney. But if a parent is even partially successful, the early intervention program may then be ordered to pay reasonable attorney's fees at the end for the parent, as long as that parent had tried mediation first. So there's more information from Department of Health about your rights to an impartial hearing in that link. Okay. And finally, the systems complaint. That's a formal complaint to the DOH about a problem with a service provider or with the early intervention program, such as a child is not receiving their services. Parents, advocates, or anyone or organization can make a systems complaint to DOH. DOH is then obligated to investigate that complaint and determine if the problems alleged in the complaint are supported by evidence. If so, DOH is obligated to issue a corrective action plan and ensure it is followed.